It's 2023. What does your campaign website need to look like? I remember way back in my day when I used to have to argue with political candidates over whether or not they needed to waste their time on a stupid website. So since the early 2000s, a political website has become an obvious part of the campaign. However, an important question arises, and when you have social media, and most people get their information from Twitter and Facebook and other social media sites, how important is it to actually have a website? I see websites now as a way to catalog basic information for people who are interested in digging a little deeper into the candidates. So you're going to find your older audience, probably Gen Xers like me, anybody over the age of 40, is probably going to want to look at a campaign website if they're interested in the election. While the average voters can easily follow their favorite candidates and get updates, when people are still in the undecided phase, are going to go to campaign website. A majority of that traffic, however, is on the cell phone, which is why one of the reasons that video is going to be so much easier to do now than it really ever has been in the past. I remember the big thing we used to try to do on websites back in the early 2000s, maybe it was 2006, was the first time we had an introductory video on a campaign website. I think the presidential campaigns had done pretty good with video in the 2004 election, but they hadn't quite fully adopted it the way you would see Tim Scott has adopted it on his website. And I say his first because his is a good example of the use of video to explain where he stands on the issues. Mike Pence's site, the way it's structured, is still my favorite website. I think the way that he laid it out, he used the semi-Reagan kind of fonts to it. It's structured and ordered, looks really good. But the downside to Pence's website is when you get into the actual text, there's just blocks of text, and it looks drab and boring. And I didn't read it all because it's just boring. You know, put in some charts or color, something. But a video atop of it, having a position on the issues, and a little video explaining where the candidate is on those issues with a campaign ad, or even charts or color or a photograph, something would have been really helpful to help make that website really pop for someone who wants to sit and read and look at where the candidate stands on the issues. Now, Tim Scott's website doesn't seem to have that, or at least I didn't find it or remember seeing it, if that tells you anything, where he actually explains where he stands on the issues, but he does do a really good introduction as to where he stands on the issues. So what's really cool is that he just has videos talking about his life and where he is, and this is perfect for the introductory phase of the campaign. He doesn't need to go into a detailed tax proposal right now on his website. He will need to do that a little bit later, but for right now, his website is probably, the way it's laid out, is the campaign website you want to keep an eye on. And since I know Pence's people watch my channel, hopefully they'll upgrade that issues page to have some color so that it's not all, So anyway, another website you want to take a look at to learn what not to do is Vivek Ramaswamy's website. His is a don't copy kind of website because his website is all about him. He already comes across to me as a slick kind of guy who thinks he can get places by talking really well. At least that's how he portrays himself on his website and in some of the formal conversations that he has. But I've seen a lot of his videos on TikTok where he's really truly connecting with people and being authentic, and that authenticity doesn't make its way to the website. So my kind of snobby opinion about some young guy who sounds slick could easily be broken up by having more authentic content where he's involved in talking about people. Ramaswamy's website overall is structured okay, but really it's just all about him talking. Then that sends the message that the only thing that matters is that he talk. And because I've seen his video on other social media sites where he's listening, I know that's not the case, but I'm a campaign nerd, and a lot of other voters will not have seen some of that other content and probably have come to the first conclusion I came to about that. So you want to avoid that. You have to have websites, and you have to structure your entire message to be about people. And when you're asking yourself how to put together your website, the first thing you have to say is, how can I show what we are doing. We. And Republicans are terrible at this. Democrats are all about people. They're great. They always have people, and they're surrounded by people, and they're authoritarian, and they don't care what people think. But they do convey the message that they care about people, and they say things. They don't even govern in a way that cares about people. They just campaign and do their messaging so well that people think they actually matter. And we Republicans are having a difficult time because there's a tendency to think that we just don't care because of how our messaging comes across. We don't include enough people. So Tim Scott and Mike Pence do a really good job of showing themselves with people. They use value messages, and they really say who they are rather well on their websites, I think. It conveys them really well. On Ram Sawari's website, you also have a page where he offers you 10% of the donations that you collect. When you're dealing with voters who are trying to figure out who they want to invest their time to volunteer or of campaign donation, or who they want to tell their friends and family that they're voting for, it's not transactional. And the idea that he would even have a page on his website really sells the idea that he's an amateur and doesn't care about people. Trying to create a transactional relationship between the potential voter and himself on that page is really disastrous and sends a terrible message. So you want to check out his website just so that you can learn what not to do. It might work well for an entrepreneur who's trying to raise money for a hedge fund, but when you're trying to get people to invest in you, you have to show people on your website. You have to show yourself talking to people and being invested in people. And that should be the core of where you begin on website development. I bring the governor of Florida's website up to, what's his name? Rick. You know, the governor from Florida. I forgot his last name. I'll remember it as soon as I turn off the camera. His website is completely different, and it's geared entirely for mobile devices, which I think is fascinating. He probably had some website statistics that showed that 80 to 90% of people were just using their cell phones to access his website, which is why if you go to the site, it just looks like, when I saw it, I thought, oh no, this is a campaign, no. But if you think about it, it looks great on the phone. You can have quick access to all his videos, the most recent news, right there in the center. It's a creative way to do it. I'm more of a traditionalist, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a website that looks like that. If I was consulting on a campaign, however, I would have a website that was a cross between with Tim Scott's video interactivity and Mike Pence's structure is ideally what you probably should have your campaign website looking like at this point as you're getting ready for 2024. So don't forget, yes, you still need a campaign website no matter how good your social media is, but you don't need to invest thousands and thousands of dollars in it. Having somebody set up a simple, well-structured WordPress site shouldn't be too pricey and difficult. And because of our ability to generate media and do so much of our own content development, you're not going to need to hire a $10,000 media team to make sure everything can be put together for you. So good luck on your campaign.